Growing up, I struggled with low self-esteem. Deep down, I really didn't like myself, and I struggled. And I was deeply afraid. I was afraid that if I got close to you, eventually you wouldn't like me, and you would leave me. And so I had a difficult time with emotional intimacy, friendship at times, real friendship, because I was afraid. A lot of shame. I would compensate these feelings with aggression, competitiveness. I had to win at everything, where I felt that shame. And so it wasn't until early adulthood that I began the journey of healing and growth. And it took many years of therapy, cultivating spiritual life, come to a place where I feel comfortable, fairly confident in my own skin, be able to tolerate the anxiety of aloneness or the feeling of abandonment or fear of abandonment. It's taken some time. So I appreciate so much the church, because the church was the place where my healing began. When I came through the doors of the church, 24 years old, recovering drug addict, I was welcomed with open arms. And I had mentors that cared for me and loved me. I still remember, Jeff Johnson and I are still really good friends, but he was a person that I experienced grace from. He knew my story, and no matter how much I didn't like myself, he continued to offer grace and grace and grace to me, and it was healing for me. And so I really appreciate how the church can be a place of healing for so many people. And I get excited when I talk about the hospitality of the church, that the church is called to be a place of hospitality where everyone knows that they belong. Because for many years, I didn't believe I belonged anywhere. I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. The church has always been a place where I felt like I belonged. So I get excited when I talk about the hospitality of the church and how we are called to embody hospitality, to welcome all into the community of faith, to affirm all as a child of God. We don't just welcome folks, we affirm everyone as a child of God. And we're always asking, or we always need to be asking, who is not here? Why are they not here? Who are the folks who are being ostracized and denied? And how can we be a voice for those who are being ostracized? Our story this morning illustrates the beauty of God's hospitality, does it not? We have Jesus strolling through Jericho, and he encounters a man who would have been rejected by his people, Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus was a tax collector. He built his wealth, the enormity of his wealth, on the backs of his fellow Israelites. He was a tax collector who worked for the Roman government, so he would not have been well liked. Right, Dave? He would have been an outsider to his people. And when Jesus came through Jericho, he couldn't hold back. He had to see who Jesus was. And he did something that no adult would have done during that time. He climbed a tree to see Jesus. That was unusual for someone to do. And then Jesus did something that would have been unusual in his society as well. And it wasn't that he actually invited himself to Zacchaeus' house. That was pretty normal back then. But it was that he invited himself to Zacchaeus' house. You're going to go eat with him, Jesus? That tax collector? You're going to have fellowship with him? The people grumbled. But they were always grumbling around Jesus, were they not? Can't believe he's doing that. He's eating with tax collectors and sinners, the unclean. I don't know how the church misses it, but I'm not talking about First Church. But wasn't Jesus all about creating an inclusive community? Wasn't he? Everywhere he went, he was bringing people together. His healing, his teaching, his loving, his caring, it was all about building the beloved community. For Jesus, there were no unclean and clean. For Jesus, there were no outsiders and insiders. Everyone belonged. And so when Jesus ate with folks, he ate with everyone, because table fellowship was symbolic of life. Back then, you didn't just have a meal with someone who was below you. And rarely did you have a meal with someone who was above you. But for Jesus, no one was below and no one was above. He invited everyone into table fellowship. And that was symbolic of the beloved community that he was trying to create and embody in life. And I believe that's who we're called to be as the church. When we feast together today, we are embodying that table fellowship where everyone belongs, that everyone is a child of the living God. And what greater calling do we have as the church than to preach and live that message, that no matter where you are, no matter who you are, where you are on life's journey, you're a beloved child of the living God. And to create that inclusive community. Not just in these walls either. Sometimes it's easy to do that, isn't it? Show up on Sunday, be an inclusive church. But it's our calling, church, our everyday calling, as we follow Jesus, to live lives of inclusivity. Always be asking, who's been ostracized in society? Who are the most vulnerable people in society? Perhaps it's us. And to be a voice for the voiceless. To build a beloved community wherever we are, in our friendships, our neighborhoods, our workplaces, in all of life. To be about that. Of living that message that all of God's people are a child of God. All of humanity. You know, when I was getting out of college, well, they finally just let me out of college. I was building playgrounds for my internship. And I had a great appreciation for playgrounds because of that. My dad's work as well. But it had never occurred to me how playgrounds can be exclusive. So many playgrounds have wood chips, right? Can a child in a wheelchair play in a playground with just wood chips? No. It wasn't until I heard an article on NPR about inclusive playgrounds that I really began to pay attention to the structure of playgrounds. And so many of them are not inclusive. Within this story that I heard, there was a parent, Johnny Fisher, his child, Brooklyn Fisher. She was born with spina bifida. And when she was 2 years old, he took her to the playground, he and his wife, and he went to put Brooklyn in the swing. And of course his wife said, "Don't do that, it's not safe." And of course he did it anyway, right? And what happened? Brooklyn fell out of the swing, fell on the ground. It wasn't designed for someone like her. And so her parents began to advocate for inclusive playgrounds where children with autism, children who had specific disabilities or walked with a wheelchair could play. And they advocated. It was parents who advocated for this in our country more so than anyone else. Because think about it. Where do kids learn life? Where do children learn life? On the playground. Play is serious business for children. And so if a child is not welcomed or able to be in the playground, they're missing out on a lot, are they not? And so within this story, we have Brooklyn riding through the playground in her wheelchair. "Daddy, watch out, I can't slow down." And he's playing with her. No, Brooklyn, don't run over. "Oh, you're going so fast." And her arms in the air, and she's free, and she's playing. She belongs. She's shoulder to shoulder with other children, all other children. They're playing together. Another parent drives by and they see what's going on. Their daughter also has spina bifida. She's 7 years old. A girl named Amanda. The parent pulls over, turns the car around and drives back into the parking lot where the playground is. She's never seen anything like it. They're from another state. Parks the car and gets Amanda out of the car, and they go over to the playground. And for the first time in her life, her daughter is able to play on the playground. And she's watching. She's watching her daughter, shoulder to shoulder with other children, playing for the first time and living life. And she said it brought chills down my spine. And I realized that this is what inclusivity looks like. We're called as the church, no matter where we are in life, be an advocate for those who feel like they don't belong or who have been treated like they don't belong. Be a voice for the voiceless and to embody God's radical hospitality. Amen.